Donald Trump and his administration have made a number of different arguments at court. The latest, and the one that seems to be working the best for them before judges, is every time that they argue that they need this ballroom because of national security reasons. There's a hole in the ground right now, so they've got to somehow make sure that the White House complex and the people who work there are secure. They also keep raising the point that there have been multiple assassination attempts around Donald Trump, and so there needs to be a large emphasis on security.
But first, let's cross stateside and the construction of the White House ballroom. Now, look, this has been a topic of continual discussion in Washington, D.C. I'm sure you've been aware that Trump is building a ballroom, but you've probably been aware of that because he makes a point of diverting whenever he's asked a question about something else to talk about that. And kind of that is the thing that I'm aware of. That is the bit of political punditry that I hear most often. Oh, Trump's deflecting to his ballroom again. But I don't really know that many details this side of the pond of exactly what he is building on the side of the White House there. And nor did I realise that there are legal hurdles involved, multiple legal challenges, with the National Trust for Historic Preservation suing to block the building work after a divided appeals court panel upheld an order to pause the project. Trump, of course, is continuing on regardless for now. Let's talk about this now with Katelyn Polantz, legal correspondent for CNN. Hi there, Katelyn.
Hi.
I did not know about all of these legal challenges that are facing the Trump administration in the building of this ballroom. Can you unpack them for us?
Yeah, so this right now is the ballroom. If you haven't seen pictures of it recently in the United States, it is torn down. There was a east wing of the White House that just sits right next to the actual White House. It's part of the complex. It's right on Lafayette Park, and it's an area where people would be working normally who work at the White House with the president. In the fall, Trump raised it very quickly, and all of a sudden there was a hole in the ground, and a lot of people flocked there to take pictures. People were very upset, and this lawsuit arose. Since then, there has been a stop and go in the court system of whether Trump is allowed to build something new on this plot of land next to the White House, really adjacent to it, where the East Wing had been. What he wants to build is a massive ballroom, and he wants to do it with private money, donations that are being made essentially to the National Park Service here. This has gone through the courts a couple times. Right now, it is at the Supreme Court. So the U.S. Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, they're going to make a decision on whether the courts have the ability right now to stop the construction on the ballroom. And so far, there have been several judges in several courts that have said Trump is doing this in a way that should not be done, that this is harmful to members of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. Those people have a right to sue here because they can say that this has fundamentally disrupted the architectural history and the cultural presence of the White House in downtown Washington, D.C. They also are saying that Trump should not be able to do this with private money, that Congress is the entity that really controls the money for any sort of project like this. Now, Donald Trump and his administration have made a number of different arguments at court. The latest, and the one that seems to be working the best for them before judges, is every time that they argue that they need this ballroom because of national security reasons. There's a hole in the ground right now, so they've got to somehow make sure that the White House complex and the people who work there are secure. They also keep raising the point that there have been multiple assassination attempts around Donald Trump, and so there needs to be a large emphasis on security. If there is to be a ballroom there that is built, they want to make sure that it has a drone-proof ceiling, reinforced windows. It's going to be a massive structure, much larger than what was previously on that site for the East Wing. It would be something that the people in the National Trust are saying would be disturbing them as an eyesore, essentially, that it would be too large, it would be too disruptive. But Trump and the White House are now saying they want to keep building it because they need this ballroom. They need to be able to host 9,000 people on site if they want to. And also on top of that, they say that it's a national security concern. The president should be able to do this if he wants to. Ultimately, the Supreme Court's going to make a decision there. And
that's going to happen this week?
It could. You never know when the Supreme Court's going to be done with something. It can take a little bit of time sometimes. But as of today, the last filing came in. And so everything is before the Supreme Court justices, and they just have to make a determination what they're going to do. It is one of those cases that there are cases in the Supreme Court that can take a really long time to get to an opinion. This is one that would be on what's called the shadow docket. And so the Supreme Court can look at this very quickly, and they can either say, thumbs up, thumbs down, whether they're going to allow construction to go forward or whether they're going to side with what the courts have done so far, which is tell Trump, you can't do this. You don't have the ability just to unilaterally demolish the East Wing and build something new with no approval and with private money. You have to stop. So we're waiting to see what happens next. It's still a construction site, though. Like, it's totally torn apart, and the underground portion is being built.
Well, that's the thing. The administration says the work is roughly 65% finished. So if it was paused, that construction, whilst there was years of debate about what to do about it, that's more of an eyesore, isn't it? It's more of a white elephant. It's more embarrassing for the USA in this important anniversary year than it would be in a way if they just let Trump finish it.
Yeah, there's a lot of construction projects across Washington happening right now, though. Like, Trump is the developer in chief in a lot of ways. He came from that world of real estate development, and right now there's not just the East Wing Ballroom that is being constructed. He's trying to put his name on the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, which is sort of our premier national performing arts space in Washington, D.C. It's the home of our National Symphony Orchestra, and it's a memorial to President John F. Kennedy that Congress built following his assassination. And so Trump now wants to put his name on that. He wants to build an arch that would sit in between the National Cemetery, where many of our military dead are buried, and put that in the eyesight, in the line of sight between the National Cemetery and the entire National Mall. There's other things that he's been doing with construction around Washington. There's scaffolding everywhere. Right now, downtown, everything is closed down. A lot of the streets are closed down because they're going to be hosting a Grand Prix, a car race, on the streets of downtown this weekend. And so there's just been a lot of disruption in D.C. This one gets a little bit of a different argument because it is about Trump and the White House specifically. And it is also this national security argument. We're really watching to see how far the courts are going to let this president go.
But it's in his image, isn't it? That's the thing. People think that what he's done to the White House is gaudy and distasteful. Even some of his own supporters think that. And so what he's building is a memorial for his style of architecture. But if another president had decided to build a ballroom, would it have been as controversial?
It might not have been, but I think the difference is that another president very likely would have talked to Congress a little bit more about this and gotten a little bit more approval, and probably would not have just wanted to fund it through private donations. That's sort of where the developer aspect of Trump is coming in, especially where he's using this privatization of planning. It is a ballroom that could be useful for the White House complex. It might not be what people may want architecturally, but at very least, there isn't an enormous space right now to hold that many people securely.
Katelyn,
and they do have a lot of large events.
Thank you so much for explaining that to me. Really appreciate your time. Katelyn Polantz there, legal correspondent for CNN. On the legal hurdles the Trump administration is facing this week as they push for their big, beautiful ballroom.